for the thread. Next thing we do is we use the elk mane for the tail.
Notice we don't have any cement here. It's for safety purposes.
One trick when you're going to deal with hair is clean out all the under fur.
Yep.
That stuff will just make you mad. So drop the hair in the stacker. I'm going to use a little law of gravity and a little inertia.
Hello, hello. Look how nice that is.
We'll pull it out. Invariably you get a few stray goodies when you pull them out, so just kind of ditch that.
I want to know how many strands of hair there is.
A lot. And I don't need that much. I mean, a lot of times if I'm tying a bunch of these, obviously I'll pre-stack a bunch of tails like this and then break off a few. Proportion-wise, that's bad enough.
He doesn't have to buy this hair, folks. He just goes out and shoots an elk.
Yep, whack them, put them in the freezer.
Okay, so length.
Length is going to be about a shank length long from the bend of the hook where you finish tying it off. So do that, switch hands. Let's stitch this. So we got a wolf style tail on it basically. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a dubbing loop by doubling my thread. I hate dubbing loops for dubbing, but I use this for a rib. So I'm just wrap it, bring it back to the bend of the hook. If you have a material clip, you can just hook it in there and just leave it there for the moment. And it's like segmentation on bodies. I'll use some kind of tannish synthetic kind of hair's-ear colored dubbing. This is some Fly Right. There's a lot of good dubbings out there. The trick of dubbing is be mean with it, like you need to do with a lot of materials. It looks like almost nothing. That's what you want to start out with. Next trick with dubbing is get mean with it again. Pinch it. Pinch it really hard. You're not going to break your thread by pinching it. You can break it by pulling on it, but you'll never break it by pinching it. And the harder you pinch it, the denser you'll get it on there. I'm only going to dub up, basically at this point in time, from about here almost to where the butts of the elk hair were, elk mane.
This looks like an antron. This is kind of an antron.
Yeah, it's a synthetic. It's supposedly poly, some type of polypropylene. Actually, sometimes it'll dub back on itself. Get a loose little bump like that, just take and snip off that extra little fuzz. Actually, it'll get covered up when we rib it anyway. Wrap the dubbing up to about this point here. We're going to tie in some rubber legs. There's some basically brown rubber. Probably the easiest way to get this on and place it.
It looks like it's a round rubber. Looks like about a medium.
Yeah. I'm going to slide that around the thread and just slide it right into place. You can kind of position it that way pretty easily if you want. You need to adjust it, just kind of pull it up a little bit. Take strand 2.
Same technique. Nice technique, Scott. Very nice. I learned something here today.
And if it's not completely even, just take and pinch it and twist it. Another thing, get mean with your materials. Take a little more dubbing. We don't need a whole lot. We're going to dub up basically to about here. For rough proportions on this fly, it's basically about half of it will be body and about half will be hackle and wing. It's real easy to crowd the head on this particular fly. If in question, I always leave more room than less.
Don't want to crowd your head where you can't get the leader through the eye because you've wrapped thread and materials over it.
Nope. Now wrap the dubbing kind of through the middle of the legs. Just pull these legs out of the way. I'm going to build it up a little bit in front of it. They kind of stay out of the way for me. Next thing I do is take this.
Looks like a spider right now, doesn't it?
And so you kind of twist the thread together to kind of make it one single strand, which makes it thicker. And this is basic on the segment the body and adds a little reinforcement to it, mostly for the segmentation. A little thicker thread will give you a little more segmentation, a little finer thread will give you less segmentation. Kind of come right up through the legs, right up through there. Just twist it around the thread a couple of times to tie it off. Hold that away while you snip it.
That was a good trick, that little twisting. That,
All beats trying to wrap it around and catch it.
Yep,
Come
that's
back a little
good.
bit. Now we're ready to tie in the wing. Now take a chunk of calf tail. We need this to be fairly long, because we're going to actually make two wings out of this, a wolf wing and a true wing. I'm going to cut off a pretty good clump. Here again,
Get rid of
clean
all
out
those
all the
fibers.
underfuzz.
Yeah.
A good way to deal with calf tails too is the trick that Jimmy Nix showed me is I'll take calf tails and actually take a wire dog brush. I don't own a dog, but have dog brushes, and kind of comb them out so that it actually kind of cleans out some of the underfur and straightens out some of the hair.
Yep. We got it stacked up,
Yeah.
and you gotta get a little more aggressive with calf tail and the stacker, I think.
That comes out even enough. That's pretty typical of a staff job. You'll still get some shorter fibers you can just kind of chomp out there with your fingers. So we got a basic shrewd looking wing. Just hold this stuff out of the way. Sometimes it's a little easier said than done. Take it and just pinch it. Start to make a few loose wraps. Okay.
Now, if you wanted to put a little cement there, that'd be a good idea, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a drop of cement would help. Actually, this flat's not going to make a whole lot of difference because we're going to lift the butts up enough that it's wedged in there. What you want to do, though, is make sure because we're going to lift this up with thread, is make sure that you have a fair amount of room in here.
Right.
So you can actually finish off the head. And what I do is I start building up my thread in front. And a nice little way I found to cheat and do this is take a little bit of dubbing.
Cheat, you wouldn't do that. Got to do it just
I'm
perfect.
all for cheating.
Comes to flight tying.
Cheat should have been a politician. So twist that on there. You don't need a whole lot, but this will actually save you a little time on build up.
Yeah.
And this is actually, the calf tails are a lot stiffer at the butts of them than they are at the tips. This is how they build animals. Hair's thicker at the butts than it is at the tips. But that saves me a little time of building up. Another thing is to do later on when we wrap the hackle is not a big jump.
Yep.
So yeah, that's sticking up pretty nice.
Yep.
We do here no more cheating. You got this nice pseudo Convertible wing. And go right in the center. And snip out about the middle quarter, middle third.
Let me see if I can see that. Oh yeah, look at that. Yep. That's pretty nifty.
You couldn't do this with a lot of stuff, but since I says basically the butts are thicker than the tips, you want to do that proportionally so it doesn't fall on its nose. I'm going to take this and I'm going to figure 8 through there. Invariably get a few strays.
Yeah,
Again, get mean with them. They're not going with you where you want them. Cut them out. I'm actually going to pull these legs just back a hair and actually just
Are you going to keep
make
them
a
that
little bit.
long?
I'll trim them down a little bit. Actually, it's easier to have them long than short right now because the longer they are, they won't catch actually the hackle fibers when you're wrapping it. And I'll lightly post the wing. Just kind of come around. And it's not going to be quite as critical as it would be on a standard wolf. Those butts are a little bit straighter than the tips of the hair.
Looking good, Scott.
That's nice and clean. Now we're going to do something you're not supposed to do either, cut natural materials. You want these to be about a shank length long. So you need, scissor tips are great for measuring.
Yep.
I mean, you could get out to the centimeter, millimeter, measuring tool or whatever, but that's kind of a lot of work. That's roughly about a shank length. So you need to take it off down to about right there. And one easier way to do it, you can do them so they're even, just pinch them together. This works with rubber legs. Works with a lot of materials.
Yeah. I notice you're kind of beveling it a little bit.
Yeah, and then actually they have that kind of what we call a paintbrush stack look. I don't want that. I'm going to do another little cheating. I'm going to actually kind of go through and just kind of rough up the ends. You can use taperizer scissors. I'm pretty much too lazy to grab another pair of scissors when I'm cranking out these flies. And so it just looks about as even as naturally stacked or natural hair that's stacked, which you can see this still has a few irregularities. But it looks cosmetically, the angle it looks better. You got to catch fish, but fishermen before catch fish anyway. And grab a little buzzard domesticus here, of the grizzly and brown variety.
Yep.
And what I generally want to do is, this is a tractor type fly. The hackle can be 1.5 to 2 times the gap of the hook. Whenever you're measuring hackle, there's a lot of hook and hackle gauges out there. They work great if they match up with your hook, but I prefer just to do that.
Yep.
Because there's so many differences in hook manufacturers. So I brought my thread back there. So I'm going to prepare the hackles. And I take
Really nice. These new premium saddles are.
Oh, they're pretty amazing. Tie a bunch of flies with
You
one
know,
hackle.
You know what makes them nice, Scott, is they have such a thin vein.
And I actually stroke those back, and actually I like to do myself. You kind of use your hand, your other hand as a guide. To kind of cut those off, you get a few fibers.
But that's a good idea to leave those fibers.
Well, it just keeps them from twisting on you. What I'll do here too is, you want the curvature or the dollar side to go forward. Here again, the new hackles is not nearly as critical as it used to be. At one time, it's like, God, if they're going to fall over on their nose if you didn't.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't let that catch right. So I set those in there. I set my hackles in at an angle.
Yeah.
I mean, my hackle's going to go this way anyway. Why start them this way?
Good, you're looking good.
Stroke that back. Let's come up forward.
Again, look at the eye. You got plenty of room. A bare hook there.
And actually, I'll do this. Another thing I do, if I don't use my hackle pliers, just use your finger to hold it in place. You're not going to hurt the hackle. The hackle's that fragile. Why bother tying a fly with it? If I get like 2 or 3 wraps behind, come forward. You see how I built that up? It's pretty even compared to if.
Much hair.
So I got 3 in front, 3 in back. Take this and drop this over with your left hand. When I'm wrapping dual hackles like that, I mean, you can use hackle pliers. I prefer to use my fingers because there's a little slipperage. And actually with the hackle stems that match up pretty closely, there's still some inconsistencies in that way. You can actually slip a little bit or grab a little bit.
Scott, let me point out something here when you're wrapping that hackle. You wrap both of them at the same time, and you get a nice thick hackle. All the fibers, if you can see here, are going straight down. And that's going to give you a fly that's going to ride a lot better and float a lot higher. Now, we talked about proponents saying you should wrap one at a time. I know that Randall Coughlin and myself both have been great believers in wrapping 2 hackles at once for that reason. Nice, thick hackle.
I think it helps. It's a lot easier, too. I mean, it comes out, I think it looks better to me, and then another thing, it's quicker. I mean, you're doing everything in one step.
I'd rather catch fish than tie flies.
Yep. One thing I'll do, too, that kind of freaks people out when I'm tying off flies, people are so worried about materials falling apart, and it's like, if your materials are so fragile, you break them tying them, why tie with them? So you don't wrap all your hackle fibers, your wing down. What I do is to finish off the head of flies, just come in here and pull everything back, wrap. I got actually a couple straight strands so I can nip out there. And it's time to whip finish. So I hook this in. This is a Mad Relay style whip finisher. It's actually Dr. Slick travel set. What I want to do too is actually my left hand, I use almost no tension. Basically the way of the bobbin. People a lot of times will just really torque on it and then they bind up and break the thread, which is a very inopportune time. Basically about 4 or 5 wraps, maybe 6 or 7 max is all you really need to hold it in place. Another thing I do too is I take my thumbnail and I'm pulling it down, or pulling the thread taut, I actually push down with my thumbnail and make sure that the thread's not caught on the eye of the hook. So it's actually closed up. Take my scissors and actually just use them like a knife.
Yep.
Then we can come in here and do some trimming.
So how long?
Pull this forward.
That's a good idea. Cut them both at once. Nice and even.
A little bit closer than that. It's a little bit smaller fly. They're probably about 1.5 shank lengths.